The disciples are sitting at Jesus' feet. He's teaching them once again about ethics, about what it means to live as a disciple, about what it means to be part of God's kingdom. And he lays out another diatribe. That is, he sets one up against the other. Like the Sermon on the Mount or the Sermon on the Plain, found in other Gospels and in other places, this is set up to remind us of what it means to live as a disciple and also what it means to not live as a disciple. This particular story comes in context after a series of challenges by the Sadducees and Pharisees and others who questioned Jesus and his role and who he was. They questioned his teaching, tried to entrap him, tried to ensnare him, and here he stands with his disciples. Come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me. Think about that for a minute. In the allegory, he goes on, Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry or gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when would we see you as a stranger or welcome you? Or when did we see you naked or without clothing? When did we see you sick or in prison? Or when did we visit you? And the king answers, truly I tell you, just as you did it to the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me. This is a moment in Jesus' story and in the gospel when he becomes close to us. We'll hear language in the coming weeks in our worship describing Jesus or God as Emmanuel, that is, God with us. And in this story, he says, if you love me, you love those that are the least around you. I know most of you take the care of others seriously. But let's think about that right now in the midst of our context. A few months ago, one of the songs by the Foo Fighters got redone. It's called In Times Like These. It's a beautiful song that portrays sort of, the idea that there's a crisis, and in times like these, you learn to love again. It's a beautiful song that I like to listen to on a regular basis, mostly because there's about 20 different artists in it, and I really like that particular kind of music. But the message also struck a chord with me about how we become more focused in times of crisis, how we can be called to our higher selves. I can't think of a time in my lifetime, and probably in your lifetimes, when we have ever faced something quite like what we're facing right now. And as we go through the next several months, the needs of all those around us will only increase. I, like you, am tired. It's been hard. Everything in my life has changed. Some of you are struggling more than others, but we're in this together. This week I was down at the community kitchen for Nourish KC, where we've continued to feed people throughout this time. I went to visit someone in a hospital. I was out in the community in other ways. And what I see is suffering and challenge and fear, all the different things. So who are we as disciples right now? And what is our call? We are called to love one another As Jesus says when he gives his great commandment, and he says, and the second is like unto it, love your neighbor as yourself. To love another is to care for them. To love another is to give out of the bounty that you have for others. I think sometimes it's hard for us to be really willing to do that. To really reach out to others in the way that might be necessary. We're looking out for our own self-care often. We need to do that. But at the same time, we're called to do what we can to reach out to others. I think about our faith community, and we've not really been able to gather in full force in person now for almost 8 months. And likely we won't be able to for several months more. We can think of that in lots of ways. We can be disappointed. We can be frustrated. We can say we don't like online worship. Maybe we didn't like sitting outside. It was too hot or too cold. Or we can see that we are sacrificing for the greater good to keep people safe both within our congregation but also to prevent the spread of the virus even further. When our students stay home from school and have to learn online, we are sacrificing, and they are sacrificing, in order to keep others safe. When our medical workers are pleading with us to be careful about our activities, to not gather with family and friends in the same way we usually do on Thanksgiving, to watch our distance with each other, to not go to bars and restaurants, and to not pack rooms full. They're sacrificing their own work, many working overtime, many working right next to those who have COVID, and they're sacrificing for the good of the whole community. I can think of those who work in grocery stores or those who work in other frontline places that provide essential and needed services, and how much they're sacrificing for the good of others. There's no easy answer right now. It's going to get harder before it gets better. And we're called as disciples to be leaders in the community in loving others. We can do that in very small ways, and I want to challenge you to think about this. Yeah, I'm tired of Zoom too. Yeah, I'm tired of looking at a computer screen. Yeah, I miss my friends. Yeah, I haven't seen my parents in a long time. Yeah, I haven't seen a movie, and I don't go out to eat, and I don't get to do the things I love. But I can call my friends. I can check in with those that I know and am friends with. I can reach out to my neighbors. I can reach out to coworkers. I can, when I hear that someone's in trouble, reach out to them and offer help in the best way that I can. I can support those who are grieving the loss of loved ones. I can reach out, and so can you. I want to challenge you to love your neighbors deeply, to love your people who are around you. Call your family members, Zoom with them, check in with others. Reach out to organizations and others who are feeding the poor and offering clothing to those around you. Find ways to support the businesses in your life to help them to maintain their employees and the different things that are necessary for them. Reach out to those that you know who are teachers or who are medical workers or police officers or firefighters or any of those who are on the front lines. Give them your love and your support, and act in ways that you can to sacrifice what's needed for the greater good. In times like these, we can learn to love again In times like these, we can learn to live again. In times like these, we can learn to love again. It really isn't simple, but it's the call for all of us right now. Your church is committed to provide as much presence as we can in this time in lots of different ways. We'll be inventive and creative, and yes, it's a sacrifice. But what we're being asked to do is really small. Our community needs us now more than ever. I hope that you'll listen to this sermon and reflect in your own life. This week is a week of Thanksgiving, and Thanksgiving is a time to express gratitude. Make a list of 50 things in your life that you're grateful for. Call the people that you're grateful for in your life. Do things for the good of the greater community. That's the call that we hear from Jesus in the gospel for today. It's the call of living out the life of love. In my mind, I don't think there's any other way. So how are you going to love your neighbor? How are you going to love Jesus? Amen.